Good evening. It's July 5th, 2021, and been playing around with some videos and yeah. Needless to say, I'm not a technical person and trying to see where we can load those and that sort of thing. So one of the series I've been working on to reinforce within myself and help me to learn more to remain teachable is a manual for teachers, volume 3 of A Course in Miracles. And A Course in Miracles is 3 parts, that is the third part. And sometimes when Course in Miracles students start their journey with A Course in Miracles, sometimes it's suggested that they start with a manual for teachers, but it really doesn't matter in that in a sense, we already know this information. It's just a way to return back home, a way to remember who we are. And so I'm just going to go ahead and continue with that, with a manual for teachers. And so I'm going to start out with the Helper's Prayer, which I might have mentioned already was one of my mom's favorite out of A Course in Miracles. And so here we go. And it helps me get into alignment of what I want to teach and what I want to learn. I'm here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent Him who sent me. I don't have to worry about what to say or what to do, because He who sent me will direct me. I'm content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. I will be healed as I let Him teach me to heal. Okay. So this chapter is what are the levels of teaching. And so I'm just going to go ahead and either read it in its entirety and then go back paragraph by paragraph with a further explanation, just according to my own personal experience. And or we'll go paragraph by paragraph. We'll see how this goes. Okay. The teachers of God have no set level of teaching. Each teaching learning situation involves a different relationship at the beginning, although the ultimate goal is always the same: to make of the relationship a holy relationship, and in which both can look upon the Son of God as sinless. There is no one from whom a teacher of God cannot learn, so there is no one whom he cannot teach. However, from a practical point of view, he cannot meet everyone, nor can everyone find him. Therefore, the plan includes very specific contacts to be made for each teacher of God. There are no accidents in salvation. Those who are to meet will meet because together they have the potential for a holy relationship. They are ready for each other. The simplest level of teaching appears to be quite superficial. It consists of what seems to be very casual encounters: a chance meeting of 2 apparent strangers in an elevator, a child who is not looking where he is going running into an adult by chance, 2 students happening to walk home together. These are not chance encounters. Each of them has the potential for becoming a teaching, learning situation. Perhaps the seeming strangers in the elevator will smile to one another. Perhaps the adult will not scold the child for bumping into him. Perhaps the students will become friends. Even at the level of the most casual encounter, it is possible for 2 people to lose sight of separate interests, if only for a moment. That moment will be enough. Salvation has come. It is difficult to understand that levels of teaching the universal course is a concept as meaningless in reality as is time. The illusion of one permits the illusion of the other. In time, the teacher of God seems to begin to change his mind about the world with a single decision, and then learns more and more about the new direction as he teaches it. We have covered the illusion of time already, but the illusion of levels of teaching seemed to be something different. Perhaps the best way to demonstrate that these levels cannot exist is simply to say that any level of the teaching-learning situation is part of God's plan for atonement, and His plan can have no levels, being a reflection of His will. Salvation is always ready and always there. God's teachers work at different levels, but the result is always the same. Each teaching-learning situation is maximal in the sense that each person involved will learn the most that he can from the other person at that time. In this case, and in this sense only, we can speak of levels of teaching. Using the term in this way, the second level of teaching is a more substantial relationship in which, for a time, two people enter into a fairly intense teaching-learning situation and then appear to separate. As with the first level, these meetings are not accidental, nor is what happens to be the end of the relationship a real end. Again, each has learned the most he can at the time. Yet all who meet will someday meet again, for it is the destiny of all relationships to become holy. God is not mistaken in His Son. The third level of teaching occurs in relationships which, when they are formed, are lifelong. These are the teaching-learning situations in which each person is given a chosen learning partner who presents him with unlimited opportunities for learning. These relationships are generally few, because their existence implies that those involved have reached a stage simultaneously in which the teaching-learning balance is actually perfect. This does not mean that they necessarily recognize this. In fact, they generally do not. They may even be quite hostile to each other for some time and perhaps for life. Yet, should they decide to learn it, the perfect lesson is before them and can be learned. And if they decide to learn that lesson, they become the saviors of the teachers who falter and may even seem to fail. No teacher of God can fail to find the help he needs. Okay, so it's talking about, three different situations with casual encounters, those that are, a little bit longer standing, but then the relationship seems to move on or separate, maybe a co-worker, and then the lifelong relationships, maybe with a parent or with a child, and the language of A Course in Miracles at times is real lengthy. And Helen was a very intelligent woman, a scientist who wasn't really a religious person. And she was going, to psychology training. I can't remember which field. And it was very competitive there. And, her call to the universe was, there's got to be a better way than this. Meaning the pressures of the competitiveness in the nature of what they were studying for was to help people, and why were they being so competitive concerning reaching out and helping others. And so Helen Schuckman, started hearing voices. And, I can't remember if she had said it sounded like her own voice or a different voice. I believe a different voice. And so she thought she was losing her mind. And so she went to someone else who was also attending there, and she ran it across him, said, I've been hearing this voice, and his suggestion to her was to write it down, and and then they'd go over it later. And so she continued to do that, and life would happen, and so she would be writing for a while, and then she would set it to the side and not hear anything and go about her business, and then she'd hear something again and write it down again. Well, when her friend scribed it for her and they discussed everything that was being said in there, he said, sure, this voice sure seems as if it would be the person or, the spirit of Jesus. And so he said, well, the thing is I think this is important. Let's go ahead and continue. Anytime you write it down, let's continue, to scribe this. And so they went ahead and did that journey together. And every time she would set it down and pick it back up, no matter how much time had gone by, it would just pick up right where it left off without her ever reviewing the previous materials. And so, just like a lot of people who claim to, hear God, or that are, others see as being awake, or being a master, or according to them, they'd say, no, I'm not. Or according to other people, they'd say, well, why would they possibly pick this woman? Why would someone speak to her and not to a religious person or a person that knows all about Jesus, those sort of things? And I think that's exactly why, and that's just a personal opinion, is the least likely of us, myself included. I've had a lot of personal experiences that, would look like the book of Revelations. The Bible being separate stories and accounts of people's personal experiences with God. And once I saw the Bible as being that, it made a lot more sense, because each of our experiences are very personal to us, and they usually don't make sense to a lot of other people. But yet there's a common thread or a common ground, especially when it comes to finding solutions, finding peace, finding joy, finding unity, removing fear and resentments and confusion, and working on anger. There's whether it's from secular or non-secular, religious or non-religious, each of us navigates life in a way that is most helpful to us, even if it's perceived by someone else as not working out. It is our own individual journey and our own experience. And so back to the levels of teaching. So that's kind of a background story of how this came to be. And the language in itself, spoke to her and people like her, very educated, scientific, and probably not very religious. And so A Course in Miracles is not extremely popular, although it gained popularity in some of its students. And Marianne Williamson would be a good example, that wrote several books and became known politically and things of this sort, or as public speakers. Gerald Jampolsky and Diane and Attitudinal Healing, and different people that took A Course in Miracles and integrated into their lives. Kenneth Wapnick ended up doing a lot of courses and a lot of things, around A Course in Miracles. Foundation for Inner Peace was formed. And so, but a lot of the people in A Course in Miracles, learning situations, when groups come together to learn A Course in Miracles or to practice it in their lives, are often educated people, often, white in color for whatever reason, and, more either scientific or metaphysical in nature. And so the language can be a barrier. Language can be a barrier even when it's simple. I guess at one point I was very complicated and extremely intelligent, and I had sustained a head injury and a PTSD circumstance where simplicity works best now. And when it comes to A Course in Miracles or anything that I've read over and over again, it's as if reading it for the first time. I have more of a childlike wonderment at things that occur, and it's as if learning for the first time. And so I enjoy remaining teachable and where everything is anew as I'm doing it. Because, of course, a manual for teachers, I studied it 50 Ways to Sunday, so to speak, applying it over the years. But in doing this does seem like the first time. So let's see here. Okay, so the idea of no chance encounters or no chance relationships, I think in most of our situations we would find an adversity to that, meaning surely this person has no part of my life, and nor do I want him to be any part of my life, or I would like them to leave my life as soon as possible. When we have these personality conflicts. But the joyful part is we get an opportunity each day. A lot of friends of mine through their journeys would wake up in the morning and say, "How can I serve?" Or help me to see or learn what I need to learn today, things like that. And so, for example, if you're just going to get some groceries at the grocery store, rather than having your list of items and everything that you intend to get, how much it's going to cost, how much it's going to set you back, what you're going to do after, what you're going to cook that in the evening, the idea is to keep in the moment, which is hard for just about all of us. And as you're approaching the grocery store, if there's somebody I need to meet, help me to know that that is the case. And oftentimes it's not even with great effort, but the idea is, to see that person as if for the first time, what if you are spiritually inclined? For me, it's Holy Spirit is just the terminology. It's a Christian terminology. It doesn't mean I am a Christian only or that's all I believe in. It just works for me and has for some time now. So be like, Holy Spirit, help me to see things differently. Help me to meet who I need to meet. Give me the words that I could use to be helpful. If there's something I need to learn, please reveal that to me. And so that helper's prayer that I had said in the beginning, a lot of people get hooked up on prayers of that nature because it says He over and over again. It works for me for a couple reasons because I usually don't listen to women very well. Most of the authorities in my life have been men, and so He works just fine. And so it's not to create an argument or anything. But so as we're going into our lives and our daily lives, it's just recognizing, this might not be by chance. There might be something to this. And then in the seeming long or very hard relationships that we have in our life, it's like an intense learning opportunity of anything that's left unforgiven within me, unforgiven of the world. And even that, the unforgiveness part, Manual for Teachers will go into that more as far as in God's sight, there's nothing to forgive. Nothing has occurred. All this separation and everything that seems very real to us, all of our little kingdoms that we got going on here, our separate houses, our separate colors, our separate beliefs, that, but for the sake of healing, for the sake of saving time and having some joy and peace while we're at it, this is something that I get to practice, and that you can also practice too if you would like to join me in this practice. Okay, so on those chance encounters, let's see, it talks about it seems to be quite superficial, but you happen to notice a particular thing. And so let's say you notice a couple in the grocery store. Plenty of people in the grocery store, but you notice this couple. So there's a learning opportunity there. And if you find an opportunity to be of service in whatever way you do that, in whatever language you use or language you don't use, but there's probably something you can learn there for your own healing, and something you can teach. And it's usually mutual, not one-sided. And there's no particular levels of teaching. One moment, I'm just going to pause here.